Sunless Sea is one of those hidden gems on Kickstarter, a game many probably don't know about, and even the ones who do may not realize it was originally crowdfunded. Kind of like how people don't seem to realize Undertale was kickstarted. Recently, developer Failbetter Games have announced a sequel, coming soon to Kickstarter as well, in Sunless Skies, and they've also started their own publishing label, helping another indie developer with their own Kickstarter, A House of Many Doors. But that's another show. Built upon a foundation laid by their previous game, Fallen London, Failbetter has gone against their namesake and have produced something truly wonderful. They've gone against the first half of their name. The second part is actually true. It's better than Fallen London, and they haven't failed, is what that means. I'll just start the intro thing. Fallen London, first released in 2009 as Echo Bazaar, is an online text adventure which forms the basis for all of Failbetter's games. Well, there are only 2 of them currently, but I could talk all day until my face was blue about how good the writing is, some of the best in any game ever. The story is a lot like Dark Souls in that it's very much in the background, and you have to go digging for it yourself. The main thrust of it is that the city of London was buried underground after Earth lost a battle against demons from hell. Oh, and also it's an 1800s steampunk world, complete with a few dashes of Cthulhu, religion, and crime for good measure. Fallen London has that perfect mix of great writing, a deep system of player choice, and innovative gameplay which earned it cult status in a short amount of time. It's no surprise that a developer like that would be able to propose a new game on Kickstarter and find success. Sunless Sea debuted on Kickstarter in September 2013, pitching itself as a unique seafaring game set within the Fallen London universe. What Failbetter was proposing wasn't exactly a new type of game like with Fallen London. In fact, it's a fairly standard roguelike exploration game on its surface. But it's practically a revolution in terms of delivering its mechanics. Likewise, the Kickstarter campaign itself is equally remarkable. Everything is laid out in such exquisite detail that you get the sense that the game was already finished by the time the campaign went live. The page swings for the fences in its elevator pitch, which is to say its opening paragraph is very concise and nicely explains Sunless Sea. Sunless Sea is a game of exploration, survival, and loneliness set in the award-winning Victorian Gothic universe of Fallen London. Take the helm of your customized steamship and set sail for the unknown. Your choices will determine the events of every game. Will you return to Fallen London with a hold full of loot, or succumb to madness and cannibalism on the Black Waters? Will you free the colonies of the Carneal Coast, or keep them in the Empire's grip? Will you betray your father's legacy, or reclaim it? And that's just the basics. From there, the page dives into the story, which is really the heart of any Failbetter game. Everything in Sunless Sea counts towards your personal story. It'll take dozens of games to explore all the subplots, grand arcs, alternatives, mysteries, relationships, and romances in the game. The Untersee, which is the sea under the ground, eats ships and their captains. Your character will die, or disappear, or lose her mind, or be hollowed out and filled with candlewax and haunt a clifftop chapel. But their legacy may survive. Your next character may be a daughter, a student, or just someone who found an old ship's log in a curiosity shop. You'll build up your own story across generations of sailors who braved the Untersee and lost, or won. Without outright stating a genre or even going into much detail about the specifics of the gameplay, you immediately understand what kind of game this is. It's about exploring a vast and uncharted sea full of otherworldly horrors, however you wish to do so. The whole page is laid out that way, telling you about the game not by simply listing its features, but by laying it out in almost a narrative form. Take the section talking about the light and dark mechanic, for example. You'll have to turn up your lights to see farthest, or let them sink low to escape detection, or to become the hunter. Like everything else in the Sunless Sea, light has its cost. Turn your light to its highest setting and you'll see farthest, but not only will you alert more monsters, you'll burn through your fuel faster, and risk leaving yourself adrift at the mercy of the tideless black. There are a lot of moving parts to Sunless Sea, and a lot to explain. I think it's because of that this Kickstarter page is so well written. It's one of the clearest and most accurate representations of what the developers intend to be the final game I've ever seen. Everything is so well explained, so detailed, and so well laid out. That's all well and good, but what if you wanted to experience some of Failbetter's highly touted writing? Well, you're covered there, as many of the sections each have their own passages from the game. So here you are, boilers stoked, hold awash with chittering crab things. Your scarred first officer pipes a melancholy tone. Your ship's surgeon strops her razors to a hearty stropping song. Phosphorescent tentacles uncoil in dark waters. Cast off. Don't look back. We broke into the galley today and found appalling things. Corpse candles, graven images, and the mortal remains of able seaman Atron, rendered partially to stock. The wretched cook would only cackle. You liked him better salted. You could argue this was completely unnecessary, and you'd probably be right, but it adds a nice bit of flavor to the campaign, while also giving people a taste of Failbetter's strongest selling point. I love simply talking about this Kickstarter campaign because it allows me to go into so much detail talking about the game itself, which I love. So often in these episodes I have to stick to looking at how off-base these things are. But here I get to fanboy out at a great game because the Kickstarter page is just immaculate. Much like my review of Shantae Half Genie Hero earlier this month, this is one of the most accurate Kickstarter pages I've ever seen. Everything promised in the campaign made its way into the final game, exactly as it was described, and they even got the release date right. This is what happens when a developer has a clear vision for what they want to create, something all too rare on Kickstarter, I'm afraid.
The objective is to get your enemy in range and keep it there while your crew attempt to get a firing solution on them. The little indicator at the bottom will show you how far through completing the firing solution they are.
The Kickstarter campaign began in September 2013, and since then, Failbetter has released a steady stream of updates, 93 so far, including one just a few weeks ago on December 16th, 2016. They really needed the constant form of communication because they decided to launch the game into early access in June 2014, and it came to Steam the next month. Unlike certain other Kickstarter games, looking at you, we happy few, everything went well. According to one update, only about 35% of the game was complete at that time, or at least implemented into the early access version, but it was enough for people to enjoy the game. Even at that early stage, it was clear that Sunless Sea was going to be something special, and more importantly, the backers were enjoying it. That's not to say there hasn't been some controversy, though. If you haven't played the game since its early access days, you may notice the ship combat has completely changed. Originally a turn-based strategy affair, combat is now more of an action arcade, real-time monstrosity. Failbetter say they changed the combat due to feedback received from the original system being too slow, tedious, and not well explained. Instead of refining the combat, they instead opted to overhaul it, swapping in a more standard real-time shooting mechanic. For the most part, people seemed happy, but this angered those who felt this faster-paced combat didn't fit with the theme and overall tone of the game. I have to say, I agree with this latter group. The overall combat wasn't great, but the strategy felt more at home here, as there was a big risk-reward feel to it. The new combat system is totally out of place, something you'd find in a more traditional roguelike, but more importantly, it's too easy to just run away from enemies before they even get near you, and often whoever has the bigger gun wins. That's always a big challenge facing any early access game, much less a Kickstarter one. A developer has to know what feedback to listen to and, frankly, what to ignore, and they don't always make the right choices. There's no better example to this than Darkest Dungeon, but that's another show. The full game would launch in February 2015 and would sell over 100,000 copies that month alone. It would also go on to be nominated by the Writers Guild of Great Britain for the Best Writing in Video Games award, and received great reviews by just about every publication, and you know, that's what's so interesting about not only this situation, but Kickstarter as a whole. I mentioned We Happy Few earlier, and we all know about that story, and if you don't, you can watch our Kicked episode on that, but it's that association with Kickstarter that always gets me. With bad games like We Happy Few, or of course Mighty No. 9, we instantly say, Kickstarter game that failed, or Kickstarter failure, or something like that. Or we point to the fact that it even had a Kickstarter campaign at all. Even if we're not blaming the Kickstarter campaign itself for a game being bad, it's still pointed out by a publication or anyone talking about it, and inevitably the commenters say they're never going to back another crowdfunding campaign again, and oh, Kickstarter's a scam and all of this, but what happens when a Kickstarter game is good? You have stuff like Sunless Sea, Divinity Original Sin, and the also aforementioned Undertale. The Kickstarter campaign then is rarely, if ever, mentioned. I think there's a real double standard out there in regards to crowdfunding. I don't know if I can say people hate Kickstarter or if they want it to fail, but it always seems like they're more willing to point out a game was funded via Kickstarter when it's bad than when it's good. Okay, that's my conspiracy theory rant over, anyway. Failbetter didn't offer much in the way of stretch goals, and of the two on offer, only one was met. That was Beneath the Sunless Sea, which was a promise to add submarines, or submarines as they're called here. It was achieved at the £90,000 goal, and a year after its 2015 release, the submarines finally arrived in the form of the Submariner DLC, released on October 2016 and free to backers. This DLC added the submarine, of course, as well as new stories, locations, and plenty of items. In September 2016, before the Submariner DLC was released, Failbetter already announced their next game, Sunless Skies. Despite the name, the game will actually take place in space, a radical departure from previous games in the Fallen London setting. I have no idea how that works, since the idea behind Fallen London and its universe is that it's, fallen, underground. But we'll have to see when they launch their new Kickstarter campaign for that next month. That's February 2017. Be sure to check out Clickist for our coverage on that over at clickist.com. If the Kickstarter campaign for Sunless Seas is any indication, I'm sure that one will be fantastic as well. Thanks for watching, everybody, and if you enjoyed that, why not stick around and check out some of our other videos, like our Kicked episode on the debacle of Mighty No. 9, or my unrequited love of David Hayter. You can support us by going to our Patreon page or simply checking out our website, clickist.com. Either way, thanks again for watching.